race fans, and welcome to Podium Esports coverage of the season finale for the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. Round number 2, race number 7, live from the virtual Phoenix Raceway in Avondale, Arizona. James Blake, the voice of Podium Esports, here alongside Josh Lee, Jeff McConey, Justin Prince is always down on pit road, and our producer for the evening, Ryan Bauer, with campers provided to us by Dougie Beard. And gentlemen, we started in March at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. We've worked our way through 14 races to make it to this point. But tonight, Josh Lee, we find out which 20 drivers will advance from this series and make their way into the eNASCAR Road to Pro Contender iRacing series that will start in November.
And this is really the end of the line for a lot of drivers as well. Of course, we have a lot of drivers above the cut line who are locked in, will get locked in with the green flag. It drops tonight and are looking to get locked in based on points. But there's a lot of drivers who tonight it is going to be the final nail in the coffin to where they're going to have to go into next year's qualifying series again, try and qualify again. It's going to be not the end of the line for anybody. They'll have another chance come next year, but it'll be a long, long off-season of preparation for next year's qualifying series.
Let's go ahead and throw this disclaimer out at the very top of the show to make sure that everybody is aware as we progress through the evening that all points that we talk about tonight are all unofficial. The final list of 20 will be approved after tonight's race and after our broadcast by Tyler Hudson, who is the competition director for the eNASCAR ladder at iRacing. So everything that we will give you is unofficial, but it is based off of the math that is used that takes into account all the drops and all the finishes to calculate which 20 drivers we believe have qualified for the eNASCAR Road to Pro Contender iRacing series. We will try and keep you abreast of that as much as we can. And as we enter this battle tonight, especially around the bubble, Jeff McConey, it is tight, to say the least.
Yes, it certainly is. It's going to be a very close battle between a lot of drivers. We're going to be focusing on, obviously, the action up front, but we're also going to be focusing a lot on the drivers that are right there on the edge. Only 20 drivers get to advance, so if you are there sort of towards the edge, really, if you're not, I would say at least 20 points up, it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable because remember, if you're 20 points above someone, you're really not safe. There's still a lot that can go wrong very quickly, and all of a sudden you go from safely in to far out.
Here's the look at everybody on the outside looking into the most notable thing as it stands. Look at the drivers within 10 points of the cutoff. Everybody from Colin Bowden at 21st back to Will Norton in 33rd. So nearly 15 guys, Josh Lee, that have a shot to race their way in tonight.
And I think Blake McCandless put it best on Twitter today. He has nothing to lose and everything to gain. And I think that's what everybody that is below the cut line right now within that 10-point window, and I'd even go as far as to say Brendan Kohler at a 13-point window might also be in the same mindset of, you know what, let's go out here, let's run the best race we possibly can and make a Hail Mary pass to make it into the Contender Series, because that's ultimately what it's going to take. There is no race after this one. Points are reset next year. Doesn't matter what you do tonight as long as you make it in.
You're either part of the top 20 or you're racing next March, and you have to wait a very, very long off season to get into the Go Series. There's a list of your race winners in the second round of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series. Jeff McConey, let's talk a little bit about Phoenix Raceway. We do have a race to talk about after all, and this is an intriguing track to finish off our season at.
Yeah, we do have a whole race to go through, and here at Phoenix Raceway in Avondale, Arizona, the turns 8 to 11 degrees. It's a little over a mile long. Now, in real life, they've changed the layout of this track so that what was now the back stretch is the front stretch and vice versa. On iRacing, we are using the old layout of it, so you have to keep in mind that the front stretch is the old front stretch, how it used to be. Track was opened in 1964. It's roughly a mile, just slightly over. Here's the thing though, in turns 3 and 4 you have the 8 to 9 degrees of progressive banking. In turns 1 and 2, 10 to 11 degrees. Doesn't sound like much, but it is very, very different when you are out there. You also have the dog leg on the backstretch, so there's really 3 different sections of this track that you need to tackle. Turns 1 and 2, which feel heavily banked, you drive it hard in there. off of the front stretch. Then you have to determine whether you're going to go down to the bottom of the dog leg, run up on the track, where you're going to be. You can cut that dog leg, but it's really easy to get really loose there. And then in turn 3, you got the flatter area. It's a tough track to get around, that's for sure.
It is indeed a tough track to run, especially over the course of a long green flag run. Tonight, we'll go for 160 laps. That's 160 miles, just over 250 kilometers. No quick repairs, as always. 5 sets of tires in the pits, and of course, there are open setups for all these drivers, just like it is in the Contender Series, just like it is in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series. It's not just about your driving ability, it's about your ability to set up a car as well. One quick note on the points before we get just looking at the math here, Seth the Merchant and Cody Bias, we believe, have not officially locked themselves in, but unofficially, we are of the belief, just with the way points have sorted, that as soon as they take the green flag in these races, that they should be mathematically in good shape to make it. They would be otherwise locked in, save for Tyler Hudson's official confirmation. So we'll make note of that as soon as we cross the green flag, and that will knock out 2 spots and will leave us with 13 places in the roster of 20 that advance the Contender Series, and maybe about, call it 20 or so drivers, just about maybe 25 even, competing for those final 13 spots across both races. Josh Lee, should be hectic.
It's going to be just a night of watching the points, especially for anybody below that cut line. I don't think they're really going to sit right until they get that official word in a couple days' time that they are in the Contender Series. And same for the drivers who might just get nothing. They get eliminated out of this unofficially and don't realize it until a couple days later. And it's going to be a bit heartbreaking for them, but you got to pick yourself up, re-rack, go again next year. It's not the end of the line for anybody that gets cut out, but we are going to take the top 20, move them into the Contender Series, and they're going to go racing with the bottom 20 in the Coke Series.
Also of note, just for the math, we have 26 cars in our split. The lowest amount of points any driver can get tonight is 11. The maximum for the race winner is 40. That leaves you with a difference of 29 points within this particular race. There's also our second race that is taking place on the Podium 2 Twitch channel. So head to twitch.tv/Podium2. If you don't see your driver on our channel, head over to the other one. Maybe pull multi-Twitch up, but you'll be able to have all coverage of all drivers trying to fight their way through the field. But those are important numbers you'll want to keep in your books if you're trying to keep score at home as we advance into the race. And we will take a look now at our starting grid for this final race of the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series season, which sees Derek Bordeaux take the top spot on the board with a 26.787 to start alongside Cody Bias. Those two will be racing most likely in the Contender Series coming up in about a month's time. Jordan Lopez Jr., Parker Retzlaff, Tucker Minter, and Caden Honeycutt complete the first 3 rows.
Briar LaPrade to the inside of that next row. He's locked in alongside Brendan Kohler, one of the drivers on the outside looking in coming into tonight. Will Norton, Omar Diallo going to round out that top 10 with Donovan Strauss, Austin Yarbrough, pair of 51s on row 6.
In row 7, you have Casey Tucker and Garrett Conrath. Row 8 goes to Colin Bowden, Christian Peterson, and Ethan Lane and Daniel Everhart round out row number 9 for tonight's race.
Logan Helton, Brian Lockwood in 19th and 20th on the grid. Max Brady, Patrick Moose, Connor Horn, and Ryan Hill trying to close out the season strong. Santiago Gutierrez and Brian Blackford completing this 26 truck field. Currently in sim, the air temperature is 76 degrees Fahrenheit. Track temp is 111 degrees Fahrenheit. Winds are headed to the east at 5 miles an hour. Humidity sits at 37%. In sim, we're rolling the clock back a little bit. The in sim time is actually in August 21st, 2021 to be precise, right around 2:30 p.m. local time. So warm. The summer in desert in Arizona, I feel like I don't really need to say much more than that, Josh Lee.
And that hot track temperature is going to affect these drivers out on the track today. Jeff McConey, of course, can comment more on it than I can, but everybody knows hotter track temps mean less grip, means more sliding, which could lead to more tire wear as well. Interesting to see how these drivers set up their cars coming into tonight, and if we're going to see a lot of drivers who are caught behind the 8-ball on adjustments tonight when it comes to pit strategy.
Speaking of pit lane, let's go down for the first time this evening to our pit reporter from Windsor, Ontario, Justin Prince.
One of the drivers to keep an eye on tonight who is just around the cut line in terms of the drops factored in is Omar Diallo. Spoke with him where he mentioned he feels there's not really too much pressure because he feels he knows where he should run, so I won't have to worry about anything. However, one thing to keep in mind for tonight is the potential of different strategies. Some have projected a 1-stop for today, others a 2-stop. If it goes green, it could be active.
We'll watch fuel saving, but we're glad you're with us here, either on Podium Esports or Podium 2, as we bring you the finale of the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series. We are green from Phoenix Raceway, and unofficially by our math, by taking the green flag in this race, Cody Bias will add his name to the list of drivers competing in the Contender Series next year.
Bias trying to get himself back to that top step of eNASCAR, but take a look at this start down the inside. Will Norton already trying to make a move in the 10. He's going to get a little bit pinched out by Parker Retzlaff. He won the top split race 1 week ago at the Bristol Motor Speedway. 3 wide for a moment as they dive into turn number 1. Brian LaPrade trying to hold off a hard-charging Brendan Kohler there. Strauss all the way on the inside, trying to protect that spot as well down on the bottom of the racetrack. Still 2 wide. Casey Tucker joins this mix as everybody races through 3 and 4.
Big fighting here in the middle of the pack. Meanwhile, up front, they've strung out amongst the first 6 trucks. It's Will Norton and Brian LaPrade that are your first battle for position as we look off the rear deck lid of Derek Bordeaux. We think he is the first one who is unofficially not quite locked in yet, but with a good finish tonight would seal it with ease as there's contact a little bit further back. LaPrade and Will Norton bounce off of each other heading through the dogleg. And look at Donovan Strauss to the inside to try and take the spots away from both of them and move up to 7th.
A little bit of yeehaw rodeo action here for Brian LaPrade. He's been somewhere in the midst of 3 wide, in the middle, on the outside. So far for the entirety of this race, this is the first time with Donovan Strauss just on his inside that he hasn't been 3 wide. A little bit of beating and banging and rubbing, but that's short track action here. A lot of people argue whether or not New Hampshire, Phoenix are short tracks or not, but either way, you race it like it is, and this is going to get aggressive quick, I think.
That was exactly the point that I was going to make. Because both tracks are so flat, there's not a lot of banking to lean into, so you really do have to be careful in how you roll back onto the throttle on corner exit. It's very easy to go when you've got fresh tires, but again, if we get a long green flag run, very easy to burn off your rubber. And Jeff, we didn't even get the chance to touch on it much on pre-race, and I want to come back to it now because I think it's going to be a really important point. We heard a lot of drivers, as Justin mentioned, talk about this potentially being a fuel mileage race, and if you save enough in this first run, there is the chance that you can cut a stop out of this race and go 1 stop lower than everybody else.
There is, but I don't think that strategy is going to be worth it. Tire fall off here, even in the trucks, is pretty significant. You're going to notice it very quickly. Fastest lap of the race so far for Brian LaPrade, for example, is a 27.477. He's already running 5, 6s and all that. You look further up the field, look at the leader here, Derek Bordeaux. His fastest lap was a 27.23. He's now running 45s, closer to the 5s. So they're already falling off 2/10 after just 6, 7 laps. I think the tire fall off is going to be far worse than these drivers are anticipating if you do 1 single stop. You make 2 stops, you get 4 fresh tires each time, and keep a safe strategy and be smart.
Somebody, though, is going to try it. I have no doubt in my mind that there will at least be one driver in this field who is going to try and run the fuel strategy game and hope that this race goes green. Of course, if we get yellow flags, then this will largely become a 2-stop race, a 3-stop race, a 4-stop race, even depending on where those yellows fall. But if we go green, there's the chance that somebody could outsmart everyone else on pit strategy, just like we saw in the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series on Tuesday night. Nick Ottinger, Logan Clampett, and company for William Byron Esports managed to short pit everybody and eventually leapt to the lead, and Nick was able to get the victory. Somebody will try that tonight. The question is who? As we look at some of the good battles here towards the front of this field, that's Parker Retzlaff trying to work his way towards the front. Go run down Jordy Lopez Jr., Cody Bias, Derek Bordeaux, all drivers who unofficially, we believe, shall be competing in the Contender Series. But again, we will reiterate that it is only upon the confirmation from Tyler Hudson that any of these drivers are officially locked in.
And that win at Bristol for Parker Retzlaff is really helping him, the Rhineland, Wisconsin driver, to really solidify himself above that cut line when it comes to the Contender Series that'll be coming up in about 1 month's time. Somebody that's really fallen off right now, Brian LaPrade in the 35, down 4 spots from where he started, currently in P11 as Casey Tucker works his way on by. Last time by, he's already into the 28s when it comes to the lap times. Everybody else running high 27s. Not sure if Brian LaPrade trying to save some tire wear. Oh, he did hit the wall. Wondering if that could have also affected the speed of that number 35, because he is still falling through the order, now down into P12, 5 spots lost.
It may have been contact with Will Norton. That's what I saw with Brian LaPrade. Maybe there was a little bit of wall contact we didn't see, but maybe there's a point. Maybe there's damage. Maybe he's trying to save tires. Maybe he's the one that's trying to fill strategy. And in fairness, he's got the wiggle room. He's another one of that 7 that we believe are good to go into the Contender Series based off the math and the stats and the points that we have. So the pressure's sort of off of Brian LaPrade. Another point I want to make as we look through this top 5, top 6, 2 drivers that stand out to me who have that mixture of real-world experience and in-sim experience, Parker Retzlaff and Caden Honeycutt. Retzlaff, of course, has competed in the ARCA Menard Series East in real life this year. Honeycutt is in the middle of a title fight in the late model stock portion of the Solid Rock Carriers Cars Tour that runs a lot of the tracks throughout Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Pennsylvania, a lot of the local tracks in that region where they go late model racing. So those two have the ability to translate skills from sim to reality and back and forth. And Jeff, I have to believe that that helps them become better drivers on both fronts.
It doesn't matter where you're turning laps, in what you're turning laps. As long as you're turning laps and pushing a car to its limits, it's going to help you in one way or another. Taking that knowledge that they're getting in real life is definitely going to help them on the virtual side. And I'd even argue the stuff that they're learning on the virtual side is helping them on the real side. You hear it from guys like Anthony Alfredo all the time. The work that they do on the sim helps them in real life a ton. So I imagine that this experience is invaluable for Parker Retzlaff, Caden Honeycutt, and other drivers on there. I know from our experience at McConey Setup Shop, we will get real drivers that contact us and say, hey, I'm looking for a setup for this track, you know, in this car. What can you do? And they'll take the setup and they'll just go and they'll practice and practice and practice. So people know that this stuff helps and it does make a big difference here. But I don't know, Brian LaPrade, as we were talking about earlier, is still falling through the field. Speaking of Anthony Alfredo, those two work together a ton. So maybe they're taking some notes and trying something new here, and maybe it just didn't work.
Part of the lockdown racing stable that put Jimmy Mullis into the playoffs. Part of the drive with Richmond Raceway Esports, but Mullis a playoff contender yet again in the Coach Series by virtue of his victory early in the year at New Hampshire. Not quite the championship run that he wanted, but he'll be back for more in 2022. Meanwhile, there's a driver that wants to get back into the Coach Series, and an interesting story at that. It's one we've touched on at various points throughout the season, but Cody Bias, a man out of Lidditz, Pennsylvania. I think back to the Contender Series in 2019, and I think back to the middle of the season, we were at Richmond Raceway. Bias had the dominant car that night, no question, and came down pit road with about 50 laps to go right before we got a flurry of yellows, which completely broke up the green flag cycle we had, shuffled him to the middle of the pack. He gets caught up in a wreck, finishes about 20th or so after being up front all night. And ultimately, it was the points difference in that race that cost him a spot in the Coke Series for 2020. He has spent the entirety of his time trying to race his way back into the Coke Series ever since. And I have to believe, Josh Lee, he's got a point to prove, especially if he can make it into the Contender Series.
Yeah, and looking at Cody Bias when it comes to his eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series pedigree, not the best driver out of anybody. Highest points finish of 11th, definitely, or highest points finish of 8th, excuse me. Definitely not a bad driver when it comes to the top step of eNASCAR in any sort of way. Was in it from 2012 to 2019, got out of it in 2019, ended up facing relegation at the end of that year. 2020, like you just mentioned, James, was so close, just missed out. And here in 2021, a great race in round number 1 that comes to mind in Charlotte, and then a consistent round number 2. His drop is 26 points out of a possible 40 points. That is an amazing drop to have. So even with the drop, still in P7. A fantastic round number 2 for Cody Bias, just unofficially putting himself up into the Contender Series once again to try and get back into the Coke Series.
Right, again, unofficially, we believe the math is there, but everything tonight is unofficial. And we will hammer that home again and again and again just to make sure that it is very clear. But based off the math we have, Cody Bias should be racing in the Contender Series next month. Meanwhile, troubles for Briar LaPrade continuing to slide down the running order. Started in 7th, back to 17th. Justin Prince, do you have more on the Ledford Billiard Supply Ford F-150?
Well, he's been asking his crew in particular about what the struggles may be, because he has been noticing those struggles down the front straightaway in particular, trying to keep up with his fellow trucks. He had mentioned that he feels they are bad right now. He says he has no idea what's going on. It's a bit of frustrations for Briar LaPrade at the moment for that respective group.
No driver in this race has lost more positions relative to their starting spot than Briar LaPrade. He's down 10 after starting in 7th. Meanwhile, on the other end of the spectrum, driver who's made the most gains, why should we not be surprised that it is the points leader Donovan Strauss who is fighting for the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series Championship outright this evening. But Donovan Strauss started in 11th, already up to 6th. Jeff McConig.
It's amazing what he's been able to do. Right now, just every single week, week in, week out, he goes out and competes and is running really well. Short tracks, road courses, doesn't matter where it is, he can go out and compete and win, no matter what the track is. So we're seeing it tonight. Up 5 spots so far, started 11th all the way up to 6th and continuing to move forward. It's not short run speed where he just all of a sudden jumps out and he's really quick and then just rides around. He is consistently quick on the short run, the long run, anywhere he goes, he can get the job done.
You really can hustle it as we go on board with Colin Bowden, who's just a little bit further back, trying to get around Garrett Conrad. Brendan Kohler just ahead of him. That would be for 12th and 11th if he can make those passes. But beyond that, everybody really has strung this out. We've hit single file very quickly here at Phoenix. You have to go all the way back to Tucker Minter, Will Norton, and Omar Diallo before you find the first side-by-side battle on the racetrack. And even then, that's for the 7th spot and 8th and 9th if you chuck it up to the board. So we'll keep an eye here on Tucker Minter. We've seen Minter on the outside trying to hold his track position as best as he can, Josh Lee, but there does come a point where if you keep fighting on the outside too much, you'll burn off the tires, and especially if this goes green, that could be very, very troublesome for Minter and company.
And look who's now joining the fray, Omar Diallo. JP mentioned it in his opening pit road report. He is right on that cut line, 1 point down unofficially with the drops. This is so important for Omar Diallo. Justin Bolton, Dylan Alt, they're in the other split. He, frankly, doesn't really know what is happening in that race. He can only race the race that he is in right now, and unofficially being under that cut line, he just needs to focus on getting as many positions made up as possible and going for this race win to try and give him the best sort of chance to get into the Contender Series and get above that top 20 tonight.
It's incredibly intriguing, I think, if you're on the bubble and the sort of mentality you have to take, Jeff McCombie, because this isn't necessarily, I think of the World Cup or the end of the group stage of the Champions League. Soccer is the easiest reference that I can make here, where, it's your match that you're playing, and then if you need a result from the other match, you'll have somebody in your ear telling you whether or not, the team you need to win, lose, or tie is winning, losing, tie. But in this case, you'd have to have, 5 or 6 people feeding you info on where the other drivers that are around the bubble are in the other split and vice versa. So it's really difficult to know what your target is. And to the point that Josh made, you really do have to just go out and try and get as many positions as you can, no matter what.
Exactly. There's no, oh, I just need to beat this person. I need to get one more spot here or there. You can't do that because the other person that you're up against in the other split could be having a really, really good night. So you have to go and get every single position you possibly can. You're focused on the lead and the lead alone. You need to get as many positions as you possibly can. That's your singular goal. And for a lot of these drivers, I'm not sure what their preference is. Some like it where they want all that information. They want to know who they have to beat. They want to know how many positions they need to get. Other drivers, don't tell me anything. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to know. My job is to drive, and that's all I'm focused on. Don't feed me any of the points information. Does not matter. So it all depends on the driver as well, how much information their crew is giving them. Sometimes they want their crew to lie to them and say, yeah, we're in. You got to just keep doing what you're doing.
Meanwhile, looking at Austin Yarborough's truck, there's damage not only to the right side, but to the rear as well. You see the deck lid caved in just a bit on his Toyota Tundra. We'll take a look at what happened to Yarborough. This was on lap 29. Looks like he may have gotten some help here. Or actually, no, got loose and then got help, I think, is the answer there. But in either case, damage to Yarborough, which could be very detrimental for him because he's right there on the edge of the cutoff. Came into tonight by RMAP. Points on the outside looking in, so he's definitely a driver that needs a good finish and needs to have as little trouble as possible in tonight's race, Josh.
And that really goes for everybody that is anywhere even close to the cut line right now. Austin Yarborough, unfortunately, under that cut line. Came into this race, exact same situation that Blake McCandless has. 5 points below the cut line, and really just a lot of racing and hoping tonight. And 16th place, definitely not the position he would be hoping for the drivers around him near that cut line to have a bad night. I think he'd rather be hoping and praying from P1 than P16.
The best benchmark that you can have if you're an Omar Diallo, if you're a Colin Bowden, if you are a Austin Yarborough, most likely in our race is going to be Casey Tucker. Tucker's the first one that's on the inside that we have at our race. He's 18th in the standings by our math coming into tonight, and Tucker sat 5 points clear of that P20 bubble entering the evening as Brendan Coleman will come down pit road for service. So if you want to try and ensure yourself of a spot, first, if you're Diallo or Bowden, you need to beat Tucker by 6 positions, which neither of them are doing at this point. Diallo's just ahead of Tucker and Bowden's 2 spots behind. And then, even if you get those 6 points direct on Tucker tonight, you have to hope that you have the best finish out of anybody in round 2 between you and Tucker or anybody else who might be on that point line, because that's the first tiebreaker. So, and or wins, of course, if they're there. But I don't think anybody around the bubble has wins save for Dylan Alt and Austin Yarborough, which could factor into this if we come down to a tiebreaker situation. But if, let's say you're Omar Diallo and Casey Tucker's got the better finish out of all the races in round 2, then Tucker would get the tiebreaker, and so you'd have to beat Tucker by 7 points, and you'd need another position. And for Diallo to be safe and beat Tucker heads up and get the points he needs to pass him right now, he would need to finish in 3rd. He's currently 9th. So, not that I am a perfect mathematician, Jeff Bacody, but I'd like to think I put in a solid effort there, and I think that's tricky to say the least, just with the way Diallo's truck is running right now.
Man, I'm an engineer. You just threw so many numbers at me. I'm just tired. Like, my head hurts. I don't do point stuff like that. I fall into the category of don't tell me about the points. I don't care. My job is to win the race. So that was a whole lot of numbers that you just threw out. I trust your math on it, but I think a lot of the drivers out here are just going, I need the best finish I can get. And they're not focused on, I need to beat this guy by 6 points or whatever. They're focused on, I need to go out and start making up ground and get more positions, no matter where they are. And if they're leading, they're saying, I need to get further away. I need to find more speed out here.
And of course, if you don't see your favorite driver in the race we have on our channel, make sure to head over to twitch.tv/podium2, because if they're not here, they're over there. So we will see how it pans out at the end of the evening. But for now, we're going to take our first break. We'll come back after a quick word from our partners. Don't go anywhere. We've got more coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series season finale from iRacing's virtual Phoenix Raceway on Podium Esports. Waltrip, Marlin, Petty, Earnhardt. These are just a few of the greats to add their names into the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway record books. Who adds their name this time around? The All-American Esports 400 returns to iRacing's virtual Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway October 23rd through 24th. Register now at podiumesports.com/AA400. Sign up before October 17th to receive a discounted registration for the weekend. Write your name in history at the All-American Esports 400. Welcome back. First yellow flag of the evening. Ethan Lane goes around. Justin Prince, they're coming to you for pit stops for the first time tonight.
And a majority of the drivers were expecting the potential of at least one caution flag here tonight, taking that potential of a 1 or 2 stop possibly out of the equation. It becomes about a 1 stop in the fuel from here on out. Right now, in terms of some of the drivers, Jordi Lopez and his camp seeing, they are feeling great, especially with the drive and how that truck has been feeling so far tonight. As well, other drivers such as Casey Tucker emphasized how difficult it was to try and build this truck for the back straight, especially down to the dog leg. Drivers racing their way off the pit lane. Bordeaux the first off the lane. Bias, Lopez Jr., Amon Retzlaff as well inside the top 4.
Good fight amongst the drivers off of pit road. Let's go back to the replay and show you what happened to bring out this yellow flag. It was a self-spin from Ethan Lane over in turns 1 and 2 on lap 41. There you see a look at the number 26 truck. A little bit of damage to the right rear corner of his machine, but so easy to do this on worn tires, Jeff McConey. You get on the gas just a little bit too early and you think you have enough banking to support your vehicle, and then all of a sudden you're going around, and thank goodness they paved that area proper some 10 years ago.
Absolutely, yeah. It's if the car's not set up quite right, it's easy to get very loose off of that corner, that transitional period. If you're not prepared for it, it'll come up and it'll bite you quickly.
So, James Spike Dossley, Jeff McConey, Justin Prince, Ryan Bauer, cameras from Dougie Beard here, bringing you the season finale of the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series. But before we go back to racing, you might have seen it during our commercial break. The All-American Esports 400 returns for 2021 in partnership with the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway in real life. Head to podiumesports.com/AA400 to register for the race. So much fun to be had coming up over the course of the weekend of October 23rd through the 24th. You got Legends cars, MX-5 Miatas, Street Stocks, 1987 stock cars, Pro Late models, and a Super Late model feature for 300 laps with over $1,000 going out to the field. You will not want to miss either night. Coverage, of course, going to be here on twitch.tv/Podium Esports all weekend long, and into podiumesports.com/AA400 for more information on the second All-American Esports 400. Derek Bordeaux will get you going, but Jeff McConey, yeah, that's actually not terribly far away from you now as I think of it.
No, it's not. That's about 45 minutes away from me, but I was going to say that's actually the official version of the All-American 400 that's held virtually. That's not any sort of, the name's just being used. That is approved by the track, Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway. They are involved. They are overseeing it, making sure everything looks good. William Hale put a lot of work in behind the scenes. We're going to be building the setups for it, but that is the official virtual All-American 400. So if you want to say you participate in the official virtual All-American 400, that's the place to do it.
It is a good place to do it. This is a good place to race this Phoenix Raceway. We'll go back on the green flag racing, Bordeaux. Bias, all clear. Here comes Parker Retzlaff to the inside of Donovan Strauss. Caden Honeycutt working the high line. How about Garrett Conrad? Just a little bit further back, trying to make it 3 wide. They are everywhere, as per the usual, with this open dogleg at Phoenix Raceway. You can run just about anywhere, but where is the breathing space and or the room to get momentum you need to get ahead of the driver next to you? That's the big question. Bordeaux and Bias and Strauss and Retzlaff and Honeycutt and even Jordy Lopez have answered it. And the first battle, Tucker Minter, Will Norton. How about actually Will Norton, Omar Diallo racing for that 8th position?
Diallo still trying to gain spots to move his way unofficially further up the cut line, but Will Norton not letting him go down there on the bottom line. The 25 has been rather strong tonight. Hasn't had a top 5 race truck, has more had a top 10 race truck. Still holding on down there on the bottom of the racetrack. Diallo goes back to the outside. Conrad going to try and put a nose to the inside of Casey Tucker. They'll race through the dog leg. Nobody electing to go too far down. Everybody stays roughly about middle way through the dog leg as you go on board with Tucker Minter looking back at this scrap with 4 race trucks.
It is a very, very good battle and a worthy one at that, because Omar Diallo needs every single spot he can get in this race. The pressure is all the way up to 11 and maybe beyond that, because the man he needs to put some time on also happens to be the man directly behind him as Jordy Lopez goes around. Looks like he and Parker Retzlaff might have come together to bring out our second yellow flag of the evening.
That involves 2 incredibly fast race trucks. Let's see how this all develops, and you can see them diving into turn number 1 here. It looks like just running a little bit out of real estate, and Retzlaff thought the 44 was going to go a little bit deeper when it came to the dog leg, came down, and that led to contact between those 2 trucks. Not a ton of damage to either of them, just some worn up tires from that spin there as you go on board with Jordy Lopez Jr.
Get a good look here at what Lopez saw. A little bit of damage to the right front of his Ford F-150, but nothing that I think will concern these two all that much, because these two unofficially are both going to the Contender Series by our math. So you're not going to be too mad about it in the grand scheme of things, because you know you're going to be racing in November most likely.
And
well, it's one of those racing deals that we just saw here that shouldn't have happened, but it did, and now you can sit and be upset about it, and tensions are high because it's the championship race and everything. But I think you're right, James, that you just gotta let it go and keep rolling, keep doing what you're doing. However, if I'm the crew chief, I'm a bit concerned about this damage. Aero is huge here. We saw Briar LaPrade. He got tapped by another truck, and that thing just dropped like a rock. It was tight as could be. He could not get that thing to turn no matter what he was doing. So any sort of aero damage is bad. There's a decent amount of damage on both of those trucks. I'd be a bit concerned if I was those crew chiefs. That truck isn't going to be nearly as quick as it was before.
Justin Prince, sounds like maybe there are a few more tempers flaring between those two than we initially thought.
Yeah, he is very upset over the radio, where he, to say the very least, felt like he was drove through with drivers trying to get down to the dogleg, because keep in mind, while that's for some the quicker way, some have felt going a little higher up is better for the tires, and you can't necessarily drive through said trucks. In turn, he has actually snapped at a few competitors who are taking a look towards said incident in the heart of the pack with drivers who are in very strong points positions, James. In other words, he is not happy in that respective camp at the moment. Second time around this time, going to get some damage repair done in the 44.
Going to try and get his truck tweaked. Meanwhile, lights are off on the pace car. We'll go back green flag racing on lap 53 of 160. So plenty of time left to go in this final race of the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series season. Derek Bordeaux, Cody Bias, Donovan Strauss, your leaders, and those 3 part of the 7 that we believe are locked in to the Contender Series unofficially. The first person who is still racing to lock himself in that we can tell, Caden Honeycutt, who rides in 4th as we go back to green flag at Phoenix.
Single file, first three. You have to go back to Caden Honeycutt, trying to get clear of Tucker Minter to find the first side-by-side. Now here comes Donovan Strauss. We've been talking about him, one of the largest movers of this race. Up 8 spots to P3 from where he started in P11. The current points leader in the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series, looking to finish off with his 4th win of round number 2 with the win. So you go on board with Caden Honeycutt. Looking at the inside of Cody Bias now as Strauss gets a nose in front of Bias. Can't clear the 27 yet through the dog leg, and he's going to clear him just by inches. Caution is back out. Looks like an incident in the back. Ethan Lane is around, second time this race.
Ethan Lane again in trouble out the back straightaway, and it's the last thing he needs to see because he's on the outside of the cutoff looking in. We'll take a look at the replay here, Jeff McConey, see what happened.
Deja vu. It was pretty much the same deal that we just saw with Jordy Lopez and Parker Retzlaff, where someone was expecting someone else to go down below the dog leg and they didn't want to. And they've got that right to hold that line and basically run on the track. They don't have to take the dog leg. They're not expected to take the dog leg. So that was just one of those deals that shouldn't happen, but you know, your spotter should tell you cars inside, you know, they're not going down onto the dog leg. Something to relay to the driver that they can't go down any further. So Ethan Lane now involved in another caution, and he just that's very frustrating, especially for Ryan Hill, who came on the mic right after. But now he's got a damaged truck, a beat up front end, as well as Colin Bowden. They've now both got front end damage when they really didn't have to have that happen.
And Colin in particular, again, outside looking in. So any sort of affliction that comes his way, any sort of trouble, be it small or large, constitutes trouble that he does not need. Let's remind you that tonight's broadcast of this eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series is brought to you by our friends at McConey Setup Shop, your home for everything iRacing and the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports. From legends to cup cars, they have you covered, with dirt setups available for late models, modifieds, and wing sprints, and road setups available for F3, LMP2, GT4, and GT3 cars. The McConey Setup Shop paint shop is open at McConeySetupShop.com/paint booth to help you look good while going fast. And paint schemes are available for any car starting at just $20 today. Coaching is available too, with help from professional drivers such as former eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series champion Zach Novak, Jimmy Mullis, River Hayes, and more. At McConey Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories. And you can visit their website at McConeySetupShop.com for more information. Lights off on the pace car. Restart to come on lap 58 of 160. So just in the ballpark of 100 laps to go. Not too much to worry about so far as the top of this field goes. Also worth noting that if Donovan Strauss wants to clinch the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series championship no matter what this evening, all he has to do is finish 7th or better by our math, and that title will be his no matter what. So it should be very intriguing to see how that pans out, and he's got a shot here at it. He's done a nice job coming through the field. Started in 11th up to 2nd. No driver in this field has gained more spots outside of Santiago Tires, who's up to 15th after starting 25th. Good run for Santi as well, trying to race his way back into the Contender Series and back into the Coke Series as well, as they spun the tires on that outside lane and it checked up Tucker Minter a little bit, and he's going to fall back a few trucks. Diallo will go clear, and maybe, just maybe, Will Norton too on the outside.
It is a hornet's nest in the back. They're still 3 wide. LaPrade up the middle. Down on the inside, that's Santiago Tires trying to get by. LaPrade barely on the door. The number 22 of Brian Lockwood. They go back into the corner. Retzlaff into the wall. He made contact with the 9 of Santiago Tires. Sends him to the back of the field. They continue to race up front. Still side by side for a couple of battles through the field. Everybody else getting settled out as they go back to the back straightaway.
That was a pretty heavy hit for Parker Retzlaff, one of the heaviest wall shots that I've seen this evening so far. I wonder how much damage his truck has and whether or not he'll need to come back down pit road to get it fixed up a bit, or whether or not he'll be able to ride it out. Which one of those two? We'll find out here over the next maybe 10 or 20 laps or so. But for the moment, it's Bordeaux, Strauss, Honeycutt, Bias, and Diallo, who's got a little bit of breathing room between he and Casey Tucker in 7th. That's the closest head-to-head battle that we can pinpoint outright. Those two are the two closest to the bubble in our race. Everybody else fighting on the bubble, you can find over on twitch.tv/podium2.
And continuing to race on, battle for the lead. Donovan Strauss trying to get that lead for the first time tonight. Bordeaux hasn't let anybody get by him for the race lead so far. This will be the first lead change in the battle for the lead that we have had all night. If Donovan Strauss can get by, 100 laps to go. It'll be 99 when they come across the start-finish line here. And we've had a couple of cautions now, James. Drivers looking like they're eager to get settled into a long green flag run, but as I say that, Bordeaux's gonna get a shot from Strauss, trying to close that door a little bit too late. Send Bordeaux further back into the field. P4, now P5, as Diallo goes by. Here's the replay.
Derek Bordeaux was sideways and then some on entry into 1, and you're right, he tried to slam the door just like we've seen a few people be the dog leg. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jeff, but I thought that if you were drifting in the Southwest U.S., you needed to go to Irwindale, not Phoenix. But maybe Derek Bordeaux knows something that we don't.
Man, I don't think he was having very much fun drifting, and that is going to tear through the tires. Not only does it wear them out, it heats them up. And when the tires get hot, it gets tight on entry and loose on exit. One of the worst conditions you can have. If you take a look at Derek Bordeaux now, he's running up 2 lanes off the bottom, trying to get that truck to turn to the bottom, but it's not going to happen with how hot that right front now is. That's going to have long-lasting implications for the entire run now that that's happened. And that wasn't even really Donovan Strauss's fault. It was just the tiniest touch, and Derek Bordeaux had to save it. But what an incredible...
If we had our drift team of Keita Kusin, Ian Plash, and Strix Pulsatrix, we know that there'd be a penalty on Donovan Strauss for making contact as the chase driver and not giving enough room for the lead driver to execute his run. But this is NASCAR, not drifting. So Donovan Strauss will get away without any sort of infractions whatsoever and now owns the race lead to the tune of about 0.3 of a second over Caden Honeycutt, who very much is rising to the occasion as we go on board a little bit further back with Casey Tucker. But Honeycutt, one of those drivers who needed a good night. He was only 6 points clear coming in. You want to lock your way into this race. Winning would be nice, but if you can't win, running second is also a pretty good way to do it.
And getting a great look at Honeycutt there from P2. Bias completes the top 3. Omar Diallo doing exactly what he needs to do from 4th place. And he has been one of the most improving drivers so far tonight here at Phoenix, and up 6 spots from where he started P10. He is in 4th place right now. And what lies on him getting into the contender series is Justin Bolton and Dylan Alt having off nights. And Alt was leading a little bit earlier on in split number 2. Looks like he has started to drop back a little bit. Alt's in P7, so unofficially Omar Diallo needs Alt to continue staying behind him when it comes to positions on the racetrack. Hard to follow when they're in 2 completely different races going for the same points, but Diallo just needs to keep on marching forward, exactly what he is doing, but needs to hold off a charging Derek Bordeaux, who's trying to come back from that drift that he had in turns 1 and 2, who's right behind him, knocking on the door.
How big that win that Dylan Alt picked up at Watkins Glen could be, how consequential that could be in all of this, because that is a huge tiebreaker to have, especially if you're rounding the bubble, because it means that Omar Diallo needs to be 2 spots ahead of Dylan Alt in order to actually bust the tie and claim one of those spots in the top 20. Diallo came into tonight 1 point behind Dylan Alt, but the tiebreaker effectively makes it a 2-position gap that he needs to have. And as it stands, it would be 3 points the difference, and Diallo would be safe by 1 if Alt is running 7th in that other race as it stands. So we did say tight margins, Jeff McConnell. We weren't lying.
No, we were not lying at all about tight margins. It's very, very difficult. But take a look here. Speaking of tight margins, how about a tight race car? Look at Derek Bourdeau. I mentioned earlier that the tires were heated up, and that's going to cause it to be tight on entry and loose on exit. And the reason that happens is that the higher the air pressure inside of the right front tire and right rear tires, the tighter it's going to be on entry and the looser it's going to be on exit, respectively. So when you're sliding sideways, that friction is heating up the tire incredibly. So it gets really, really hot, and as the tire gets hotter, the pressure inside increases, and that's what causes it to go up and get tighter on entry. So you see that truck for Derek Bourdeau is very, very, very tight. So that, when I said it had long-lasting implications, even 10 laps later now, he's still feeling it and is still not able to get up in front of these drivers who he was pulling away from earlier.
So, Jeff, is that partially tire wear? Is that partially disturbed air and dirty air? If you were to try and point out reasons as to why that truck is struggling right now, what's the biggest culprit amongst the handful that exists?
The tires are heating up and then cooling back down as the run goes on, because they probably heated up to maybe 30, 40 degrees above where they should be, depending how long he was sliding, which was a good, decent slide that he had pretty much through all of 1 and 2. And then they're cooling back down. That throws them for a loop. But the fact that he's now pushing it, and that's also keeping the tires hot, I really think that that's what it's going to come down to. And the worst condition for a race car for a lot of people is tight in, tight on entry, loose on exit. So it's just so difficult to get a grip on it, because right in the center where it goes from tight to loose, it just shifts so quickly. And when you're loose on exit, you're feathering the throttle, you don't really get a good run down the straightaway. That can really, really kill you when you're running out here. So I would definitely say it's the tires, not so much the dirty air. That has a bit to do with it, but I think those tires are really going to be hurting for Derek Bourdeau, and he's not going to get a chance to pit probably until about lap 110. I think that's when everyone is going to start coming back in.
Also of note here, as I continue to look at the points and look at Omar Diallo, who's just ahead of Derek Bourdeau there. If we're going head-to-head between Tucker and Diallo, Tucker's best finish of round number 2 was at Watkins Glen. He brought it home 6th. Diallo's best finish was at Homestead. You know where he finished, Josh Lee? 5th. So the tiebreaker between those two would go to Diallo in that case, if it comes down to it.
And looking in the other split that is going on at the same time, Alton Bolton not having bad nights by any means, definitely not having great nights, so Diallo does have an opportunity to try and get his way above that cut line, and it's a little bit more to reach Casey Tucker. But talking about Casey Tucker running in P8, he might also have a chance to jump Casey Tucker as well. Caden Honeycutt, also one of the drivers that needs to stay in the front. If they drop too far back, one of the drivers from below the cut line can go and overtake them. I'm thinking about Colin Bowden. I'm thinking about Blake McCandless, who is trying a one-stop strategy when it comes to split number 2. Thank you to our team, Zach Johnson, producer, and Justin Prince as well, getting all that information for us. And they're going for a Hail Mary strategy like we mentioned that he would. So McCandless is trying to get above that cut line unofficially. It's going to just all come down to these final laps of Road to Pro. Where is everybody going to finish? Then we can take a look at the unofficial points and say, here's what happened, here's why it happened.
Yeah, McCandless will lead that race to go green, and if you want to find out what happens in the second race of the evening, head over to twitch.tv/podium2. Jacob Hitz, Kevin McAdams, and Justin Malilla on the coverage for us, with Zach Johnson behind the glass, making things look beautiful for you all at home or wherever you may be watching. Here's Daniel Everhart, a little bit further back in the field, former champion of the Podium 500, running in the top 10, and just looking to close out this season well. Not quite what he wanted, but still fighting for spots, fighting for places, and maybe even a spot in the Contender Series yet.
Casey Tucker over the voice chat as well, definitely not happy being caught up in a bit of a battle there. And looking back, Briar LaPrade down into P16. Back there with Parker Retzlaff. LaPrade just has been behind the 8 ball all night, James. Definitely not the day that 35 needed. Luckily, unofficially locked in to the Contender Series, and he's going to let Parker Retzlaff go by. A big thank you over the iRacing voice chat for Retzlaff as he gets to go on by into P16. Strauss leads, Honeycutt second, Bias, Diallo, and Bordeaux that top 5. Out of this top 5, Donovan Strauss unofficially locked in, Cody Bias unofficially locked in, Derek Bordeaux unofficially locked in. So Honeycutt and Diallo really the ones we need to focus on in this top 5, as Casey Tucker battling with Tucker Minter side by side. Mentioned about a lap ago, Casey Tucker not so happy with the racing that's going on the racetrack right now, trying to get away from other vehicles, but it's still in a side-by-side battle as Minter will be able to clear. Here comes Colin Bowden up to the outside.
As they continue to fight, we've hit halfway, which means it's time for our final midway race break of the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series season. And as always, it's brought to you by iRacing, the world's premier online racing game. iRacing puts you in the driver's seat to experience today's newest form of competitive motorsport, virtual racing, all from your home PC. Race virtually in Australian supercars, IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, the World of Outlaws, and more. Donovan Strauss looking to win this eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series Championship with authority. Currently your race leader after 82, call it 83 laps complete as he comes across the stripe. Caden Honeycutt currently in second. Cody Bias rides third. Omar Diallo needs a big run tonight, needs to beat Casey Tucker head-to-head. He's fourth. Derek Bordeaux also likely racing in the Contender Series based off of our math as we have trouble. Daniel Eberhardt in trouble over in 1 and 2, and the yellow flag is out in the middle of the midway race break. Let's take a look at the replay, Jeff McConey, and see what happened.
Oh, do we really want to do that? So that was just the product of some hard racing there. Man, oh, that 28 of Casey Tucker just got, I don't know if he got tight or caught the apron or what, but he just comes right up and into Daniel Eberhardt, who backs it into the wall. That's gonna be a lot of damage for that truck, unfortunately. It doesn't look too terrible, but it's gonna definitely impact the way that thing drives.
It's big time rear end damage, but Eberhardt did hit the rear bumper largely square against the fence, so it certainly could be worse. I wouldn't expect there to be too much suspension damage, at least not as much as there could have been back there. It's not great, but it certainly could be worse as the field comes down to pit road and into the purview of Justin Prince.
And many of the drivers feeling a bit comfortable with some of their trucks prior to that situation. The one word coming in from Daniel Eberhardt's camp after the incident, the truck is broken. As well, though, majority of the drivers have been having to make adjustments. Cody Bias and his team feels like they've been struggling a bit in terms of the confidence, in particular on the restarts, but the balance has been good, similar to what they did in testing. As for Tucker Minter, who was in those fierce fights before the caution flag, his camp says their truck has not been good. They have been battling with tightness throughout the race. They expect potential adjustments here as off and away goes the race off the pits.
Strauss will win that battle off of pit road. Also worth noting, Jeff McConey, remember who Daniel Eberhardt got into? Casey Tucker, who we pointed out a few times tonight is the closest driver to the cutoff line of those that entered tonight on the good half of the top 20. So I wonder whether or not there may have been just hard racing because Tucker knows what we're in for as well.
More than likely, Casey Tucker was trying to get everything that he can out of this truck, but we'll have to just take a look side by side here as we throw to one of our amazing partners that help make these broadcasts possible. Be sure to support those who support the things that you like, all the people that make these broadcasts on Podium Esports possible. Show them some love, show them some support.
And we'll be back with more coverage from the eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series from the virtual Phoenix Raceway after this. When you want to be the best, you can't settle for the rest. There's a reason that McConey Setup Shop is trusted by more virtual and real-world tracks and companies than any other setup shop in iRacing. With partners such as Stafford Motor Speedway, the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, Five Flag Speedway, Speed 51, and more. When you want something done right, you go to the experts at McConey Setup Shop.
With setups available for most series on both asphalt and dirt, built by a team of professional builders consisting of some of the top talents on the service, McConey Setup Shop LLC has what you need to hit the track with confidence. Head over to McConeySetupShop.com and learn why McConey Setup Shop is the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports and is partnered with some of the largest names in virtual and real racing.
And remember, at McConey Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series as Donovan Strauss gets back on the gas pedal, and we are back to green flag racing on lap 89 of 160. He goes clear. Honeycutt to second, Bordeaux to third, Bias fourth, Diallo racing side by side with Colton Bowden for fifth.
Bowden getting stuck on that outside line. Diallo now going to try and go for Cody Bias as well. Can he get 2 for 1? He's going to be down on that inside line. Noticing in 3 and 4, the outside line on these restarts especially can be used as a tool. Exactly what Bias did there and exactly what Bowden's trying to do. Pinches Diallo down to the bottom as they stay side by side.
So Diallo continuing to hustle. Bordeaux slipping back. That truck looks very, 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 very tough to handle. At least it did coming through 3 and 4 the last time by. He was wiggling all over the place on quarter exit. It's even less stable this time around. And maybe it's a question of when Cody Bias is able to get to his teammate not in.
Side by side a little bit further back as well as the 23 Christian Peterson gets caught on the inside line. He's close to his Logitech GLC Sports teammate Jordy Lopez Jr. to the inside of Casey Tucker he goes. Peterson, another one of those drivers who is above the cut line, James, but definitely cannot rest easy when it comes to this race. He is 11 good to the cut line and a huge move to the inside, 3 wide for Jordy Lopez Jr. to the inside of Conrath and Lockwood.
Big move there for Lopez, and he might just try and get them both as they go 3 abreast into turn 3 here at Phoenix. Not really much give, though, but Conrath is going to run the high lane and maybe slide in behind the 22 truck just about. Oh, I thought he might get the fence there. Good shot there off of Brian LaPrad's machine, and you see just how busy Conrath's been. A little bit of damage to the deck lid of his Ford F-150, but he'll fall in line behind Lopez as Lopez now tries to run up and go after Casey Tucker and his teammate Christian Peterson.
And still side by side between the two Tuckers, Casey Tucker, Tucker Mincer, and the two Logitech GLC Sports drivers, Peterson Lopez Jr. trying to make a line on the bottom of the racetrack to work their way past drivers. And here's the battle for the lead. Donovan Strauss up front, Caden Honeycutt back into second place. What Honeycutt needed, being 6 points good to the cut line. Scrap heap in the middle of the pack right now as contact between Minter and Tucker. Diallo and Norton go side by side in front of this group. It is all a mess from 8th on back here, James.
And as they fight for it, let's see if we can try this midway race break again to tell you where your favorite driver runs in this race. Donovan Strauss, we did say, still leading. Caden Honeycutt second. Derek Bordeaux third. Cody Bias and Colin Bowden complete the top 5. Omar Diallo runs in 6th. 7th is Will Norton. Tucker Minter holds 8th. Casey Tucker 9th for the moment, looking for 8th underneath Minter. And Christian Peterson completes the top 10, Josh Lee.
Jordy Lopez Jr. fighting from P11. It's all single file back from here for the moment. Lockwood P12, Garrett Conrath P13, Brian LaPrade 14th, and Ethan Lane bouncing back from 2 spins tonight. He's currently P15. Santiago Tierra is P16. Parker Retzlaff still trying to get back from an incident earlier on this race from P17. Brendan Kohler, Austin Yarborough, and Patrick Moose will round out the top 20. Jeff McConey.
In 21st of this 26 truck field, we have Connor Horn, Logan Helton 22nd, Max Brady 23rd, Brian Hill in 24th, battling with Brian Blackford, who now took 24th away, so put Blackford and Hill in a battle there. I'm sorry, that is Blackford and Eberhart in that battle. Blackford 25th, Daniel Eberhart 26th. Those two are duking it out for 25th position, but very strong field out here so far. Everyone still on the lead lap.
There is your group here, and this final race of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series season for 2021. And a reminder, as always, that our midway race break is brought to you by iRacing. With over 170,000 drivers on the service and over 90 laser scan tracks and cars to choose from, iRacing is your portal to the racing world, and you can get involved by going on track today at iRacing.com. Want to move to this battle for P9 between Christian Peterson, Tucker Minter. They're door to door. Worth noting here that a lot of the drivers around Tucker Minter are either in the top 20 or fighting on the edge of the top 20. Christian Peterson is in that bunch. Casey Tucker is in that bunch. Jordy Lopez Jr. is in that bunch. Garrett Conrad is in that bunch. All of them trying to fight for a spot. By our math, Tucker Minter mathematically does not have a shot at this. He came into tonight 30 points out. You can only gain 29 by running in this race. So Minter, unofficially, we think is done. So there is a question here, and I think maybe a largely philosophical one, Josh Lee, that we come to in a situation like this, where if you are Tucker Minter, yes, obviously you want to try and go get as many spots as you can, but is there value in letting the people who are racing for something to actually race for here, or a spot in the Contender Series, maybe letting them go and maybe racing them a little bit easier than some of the other folks who might not have a shot at the Contender Series next month?
Well, I definitely think that we're talking about really competitive drivers here. I don't think they want to just let anybody go by or race anybody easy. That being said, would not be a popular move for Tucker Minter if he were to somehow make contact with one of the drivers that is trying to race to get above that cut line. So I wouldn't say necessarily don't race them at all as he goes side by side with Brian Lockwood, but be extra careful. If you make contact with any of them, that is not going to be good whatsoever.
We already saw contact between Casey Tucker and Daniel Eberhart, who now could be in trouble. He fifth in this race and definitely could use a little bit of help. He only came into tonight 17 points to the good. If you're playing the math game, needed to be within the top 14 in order to be guaranteed a spot into the next round. Now, that being said, we take a little bit deeper dive into this. His drop is, I believe, a 9, so could be worse, and he probably would take that 9, but that's not great. So Eberhart might be sweating here a little bit. It certainly is going to be close. We would not be able to nail down all the permutations and combinations, but you look at drivers that didn't need bad luck this evening. Josh Lee, that's one that definitely is going to be worrying. He's sort of on the flip side of where Caden Honeycutt sits, where Honeycutt's rising to the occasion and racing with intent of trying to clinch his spot by putting together a good finish when it matters the most.
And Honeycutt now in P2. My, look at the contact to Garrett Conrad that he got a little bit earlier on in this race. A ton of damage to the back of that 9 machine. But talking specifically about Caden Honeycutt, he's had an amazing season. I mean, his drop race when it comes to the points is one where he did not show at Rockingham. The Bridge City, Texas driver with some great finishes, just a bad finish at Bristol 1 week ago. Surprisingly, being a short track guy, bad finish at Bristol, some bad luck there, puts him 6 points above that cut line. Looking much better than Dylan Oltz and Justin Bolton when it comes to split number 2, and looking just a little bit better than Omar Diallo. He doesn't really need to be too much better than Omar Diallo, just make sure he's better than Tucker, Oltz, and Bolton. Diallo, I'd even throw Colin Bowden into that mix, and maybe Blake McCandless. If he's doing better than them, he might end up just being way good to the cut line, but he just needs to stay on those eggshells for right now. Does not want to give up any track position and trying to hold off Derek Bordeaux in the process. Every position is a point, James. You got to remember that.
Also of note, just got word in the other race that Liam Brotherton crashes hard and is out of the race. His drop was 2 points, so he will maintain that, but tonight's run will count in the points book for him. Based upon the numbers we have here, that means he's going to ballpark in the neighborhood of maybe 11 or 12 points, which is not great. but maybe is good enough. We'll have to see at the end of the evening. Meanwhile, it's Michael Cozy Jr., Dylan Alt, Colin Keister, Blake McCandless, and Brian Mercurio that are top 5 in that race, followed by Kyle Peddle, Justin Bolton, Nicholas Shelton, Michael Finlayson, and Seth DeMerchant, and most notably Josh Lee of that bunch. Dylan Alt having a good run. He's near the bubble. Blake McCandless having a good run. He's near the bubble. And Justin Bolton having a good run. He, too, near the bubble. Not folks that people like Omar Diallo need to hear are running well.
Yeah, and that crash for Liam Brotherton is going to help Diallo a little bit, but like we've been mentioning all night, if they have a physical crew chief, they're not using the in-race game spotter or any of the crew chief applications. They have a physical person that is calling the shots from on top of the virtual pit box for them tonight. They can maybe try and watch the points situation, but end of the night, the drivers in this race who are racing on that cut line need to focus on their own race. They need to race their race. I know it's a cliche to say, but they just need to focus on what is happening in front of them, not the points. If they do that, everything will fall into place. And if you just race your own race, finish the bets that you possibly can tonight, even if you don't make it into the Contender Series, at least you tried your best at the end and can walk away with a good finish. As Diallo gets by Colin Bowden by inches, mind you, coming off of turn 4, Bowden back to the inside as they go side by side for 5th.
Just with the way some of the drivers in the other race are running around the bubble, there's a very real chance, I think, that Omar Diallo's best shot to guarantee himself a place in the Contender Series is to beat Casey Tucker by the gap we talked about earlier. A reminder that Diallo has the upper hand in terms of best finish over Tucker by 1 position, a 5th place to his 6th place. So he has the tiebreaker if they are level on points at the end of all of this. Right now, it is a 6-point gap that they came into tonight with. Diallo currently sits 4 positions ahead of Casey Tucker. So Diallo can go get Cody Bias and Derek Bordeaux, or if Tucker slips back and Jordy Lopez gets him, Brian Lockwood gets him, it's game on for Omar Diallo. He's got a shot. I can't rule it out at this stage.
It's just a lot of watching the points right now, and it's tough to do, like we've been mentioning all night, with it being 2 different splits, but this is some exciting stuff. We're really not going to know, even unofficial, where everybody sits until the checkered flag flies in both split 1 and 2, and then we're going to know officially in a couple of days' time after Tyler Hudson, competition director for the eNASCAR ladder, looks at everything and makes the final call on the top 20 in the point standings. But just watching the unofficial points, and it seems like every position that is gained or lost, it's changing what's going on the cut line. Liam Brotherton crashing out. Is anybody else going to crash out of split 2? Are we going to see more stuff happen here in split number 1 that is going to affect the cut line? This is going to keep getting more intense and more intense and more intense all the way up to the checkered flag. We not only have a race happening in both of the splits, we have a race happening in the points.
We do have a race happening in the points, so this is how it sits. You've got everybody in the bubble that's running decently well here, but other drivers who did not need to have bad nights and are the names to watch without question that are currently in the top 20. Liam Brotherton, who's already out of the other race, and Daniel Eberhardt, who runs 25th in this one. They were not mathematically locked in. They are the ones having the bad nights with the incidents that may well be at the risk of falling out of the top 20. But again, it is all going to come down to how things pan out once these races end. And of course, as soon as we get the numbers, we will tell you from our math who we think unofficial is into the Contenders Series, to be confirmed by Tyler Hudson later on over the next few days. Dominic Joust, though, still clear and out front of everybody in this race, up by 1.5 seconds over Caden Honeycutt, who I don't think will mind this one bit. Honeycutt needed a little bit to make sure that he was clear, but you want to talk about drivers who will certainly take this, and drivers who will benefit, if anything, because Honeycutt missed the race at Rockingham back in August, so his drop is currently a 0, but every single other race in this series, his worst finish, have to go, well, just back to Bristol. He had a little bit of trouble, but even still managed to bring it home in 27th, but everything else has been 30 points or more in each of the races he's run in round 2. And I think that is the stat that's more indicative of the way he's performed in this second round, Jeff McCone.
You've got that right, and a lot of things can really change from one round to another. You can have one really good round and then one poor one, but to sort of, I guess, change gears in a sense, you have to remember this next round that we're going to, the Contender Series, everything resets. So everything that happened before doesn't matter. Any rivalries, you better get over it, because you're now all back to square one. Everyone's going to be battling for every single point that they can possibly get. So a lot of things can change. Speaking of rounds and things changing and moving along, that's what I'm focusing forward on. If I'm already one of the drivers that's locked in, is now all the points are reset and everyone's back to square one. And we could see people even as dominant as Donovan Strauss not make it into the next round. We'll have to see.
And that was the exact point I was about to make, is that Donovan Strauss made it into the Contender Series last year and then was just about dead last in Contender Series points a year ago. And he's talked a lot about how that experience helped shape his run this year, how he learned so much from that first crack at running in the Contender Series, going up against Coke Series level drivers, and how that shaped him as we've come into 2021. I think we've seen the fruits of that this year, and we've seen just how quick he's been. Josh Lee, he's been outright one of the fastest drivers, and I think more importantly, you look at the places where he's picked up victories. In the first round, it was at Darlington and it was at Dover. In the second round, it was at Knoxville, at Homestead, and at Rockingham. Not necessarily easy tracks to make it happen. Homestead's the only real mile and a half that he got a victory at. Most of the other tracks on that list, driver's tracks, where you really do have to have some skill to get around there quickly.
Not only was it drivers' tracks, difficult tracks, all different tracks as well. Darlington, there's nothing really you can compare Darlington to. Dover, a very tough short track. Knoxville, on dirt. Homestead, an intermediate. Caution flag is going to fly. Issue for Max Brady in the dog leg. And this is going to throw a wrench into poor old Jeff McConey's strategy.
Oh, this is going to be very fun now, because we're going to have effectively a 40-lap run to the finish. Here's the replay. Carbon copy of one of the drivers earlier. I forget specifically who, but looping it around in the corner, just got on the gas too quickly, ran up the banking, whilst the rear end, and around goes Max Brady in his Toyota Tundra down to the inside of the dog leg. So he will get himself fixed up, and we will wait to see if these drivers come down for service. You would think they would, which means it's time for us to go back down to Justin Prince and see what they might do on what could be the last stop of the night.
And was just starting to get word from some of the teams, in particular some of the lead trucks, that the fuel before this caution flag was going to be very close. This now makes sure they are good to go. Just got that confirmation. Now, in regards to Caden Honeycutt, their camp has said that their truck feels good. Their goal is to maintain track position at the moment. So not too many changes expected for that side of the field. Other than that, things mostly calm throughout the field for many of these trucks, as this could potentially shake up the running order, though, with the timing of this caution flag. As off goes the race, two-tire stop for Jordy Lopez.
Jordy Lopez Jr. is going to beat them all on pit road with the two-tire stop. He's the only driver in the field to make that call. So there's track position for Jordy Lopez. And what does that do to shake up the rest of his race? But for now, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with the finish of this eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series event for the virtual Phoenix Raceway here on Podium Esports. Waltrip, Marlin, Petty, Earnhardt. These are just a few of the greats to add their names into the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway record books. Who adds their name this time around? The All-American Esports 400 returns to iRacing's virtual Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, October 23rd through 24th. Register now at podiumesports.com/AA400. Sign up before October 17th to receive. Back to green flag racing here at Phoenix. Jordy Lopez on 2 tires, trying to hold off the rest of the field on 4 as they go 3 wide just a little bit further back. Let's call him out and racing for a spot in the Contender Series. And there's Casey Tucker trying to make a move as they fan out 4 and 5 wide in the dogleg.
3 wide for P2. Bordeaux goes to the bottom. Honeycutt on the outside. Getting caught with those 2 tires, it's Jordy Lopez Jr. That was not the strategy that he wanted to go for. He's unofficially locked in. He was just throwing stuff at the wall, hoping it would stick, and it doesn't look like it did as he now tries to chop off of Omar Diallo, trying to race up into P4. Diallo will get that nose to the inside. The top 3 stay relatively the same as they've been all night. Strauss, Honeycutt, Bordeaux trying to run away.
Diallo needs 2 positions to try and get that gap he needs on Casey Tucker to beat him outright, as I think that's Garrett Conrad that smacked the fence a little bit further back in the field. But again, we talked about Diallo and Tucker all night long. That's the closest battle of drivers in our race that are fighting for spots in the Contender Series head-to-head. Everybody else over in the other race, which you can find on twitch.tv/podium2. But that's a battle we've been watching all night long. Those 2 are effectively heads up for what could be the last spot in the Contender Series.
Fights all over the racetrack right now with 33 to go, and everybody not giving an inch. Retzlaff goes bottom of 3 wide with Lockwood and Bowden. Bowden's gonna give a tap to the wall heading into the dog leg. They'll stay side by side, Retzlaff and Lockwood. Here comes Brendan Kohler back into the mix. He had an issue a little bit earlier on in this race. He pitted before anybody else even thought about pitting. He's back up into P12. Driver sliding coming off of these corners. 31 to go. The time is now to try and make as many positions as possible. And if you're on that cut line, you gotta be going for every possible spot that you can get on the racetrack, because it is now or never.
Bowden in particular needs to fight, because he too was right there with Diallo. 1 point on the outside looking in, and Diallo's beating him handily. It's almost a 10-point difference between Diallo and Bowden. So Bowden's got to figure out something here and quick. Meanwhile, Casey Tucker's up to 8, which is the last thing that Diallo needs to hear, because Diallo now needs 2 positions. He needs to get Bordeaux and Honeycutt, if that holds with Casey Tucker, in order to have a shot at one of those final 20 positions outright.
And Honeycutt is closing in on Donovan Strauss right now. And remember, Honeycutt definitely not safe. 6 points above that cut line. Needs to continue the way he's going, and unfortunately, James, it gets difficult once you get into that top 5, because there is not a lot of room to go as far up as he possibly can, and because he has the farthest position right in front of him, P1. If he gets past Strauss, he needs to hope that drivers under him, Casey Tucker, Dylan Altz, and more, end up going down the order. Problems in the back. Austin Yarbrough, contact with Tucker Minter, 2 drivers that did not need to come together, just did off of turn 4.
There's a stack up there. Looks like Austin Yarbrough was the first one that went around. I think there might have been contact between Yarbrough and Ryan Hill. Those 2 bounce off of each other. Really nice work. How about the 63 of Logan Helton? If we can get on board from his truck, see how he just snuck through this on the bottom. But trouble there for Yarbrough, and then Minter didn't really have much of a spot to go, and Ethan Lane just became a gigantic pinball and all that as Minter struggled to get on the brakes.
Here's the onboard with Helton. You can see the 55 up to the outside. And Helton gets a little bit of a shot to the back. I believe right there you can see the wheel play. But he gets by it, able to race on from P21. Not the round 2 that Logan Helton was looking for. He is officially, or unofficially, excuse me, ruled out, down 90 points to the cut line, but definitely can take a lot from this Road to Pro experience. Take it into next year, try and make another run of the Coke Series.
Trying to see who decides to come down pit road and make a late stop to make a difference, and the answer is going to be Will Norton, who might as well have tried something. He was 16 points on the outside looking in, so Norton just about has to win this race to have any hope of trying to make it, but he's not the only one that's going to come down pit road here. Jordy Lopez Jr. in, Colin Bowden in, Brendan Kohler in, Brian Pratt in, a lot of drivers in towards the back half of the lead lap. Justin Prince.
And some of them, keep in mind, who are amongst those looking to gain spots or get good points with the drops factored in. Austin Yarborough in particular, talked with him before the race. He mentioned how when it felt really good and smooth in terms of the Bristol race, it was about keeping calm and smart with his driving. He felt like he needed to improve on qualifying, especially with Elliott Sauer working with him on the box for these races. He expected bold strategies. We've seen the bold strategies tonight, just not the luck. Ethan Lane was talking with him as well. Remember, he was a contender to win at Bristol before a blue screen ended off his respective race. And he had told me this was not his favorite track since the reconfiguration. And I'm talking about to this version of Phoenix, not the current and real life version. He's been fighting center turn in that respective camp to try and get that truck together. And some of those struggles have snowballed throughout the night tonight. Also getting confirmation from one respective driver from Parker Retzlaff's side that their truck is still dealing with significant damage, even though they're in 10th.
So we are lights off on the pace truck. Also of note, Jeff McConey. Is it time to scream, maybe?
Well, maybe, because honestly, you gotta just go with what you got out there. I don't want to see my driver come down pit road. We're busy eating ice cream. You got what you got. We got a couple laps left. Don't come back down here, all right? Day out on track. We're eating ice cream. It's a beautiful day in Phoenix.
This is where our crew chief on our team is at this point. That's what happens. So
You got just eat it up, man.
Yeah.
Eat it up.
They teach you at Purdue how to be a shark and how to eat ice cream on broadcast, I suppose. We'll see who's banging the world's largest drum as champion of the series at the end of it all. Right now, that would be Donovan Strauss, who goes back to the front as we go back to racing here. Just outside of 20 laps to go. Strauss, Honeycutt, Bias ahead of Bordeaux, and Casey Tucker up to 6 to try and lock down his spot in the Contender Series, potentially.
Look at Brian Lockwood up to P8. What a run from the 22 tonight. Unofficially ruled out when it comes to the Contender Series, but having one of his best runs on an oval so far tonight after his win at Watkins Glen. 2x2 through most of the field. Brian Blackford gets caught on the outside line. He's going to fall to P17. You're on board with Lockwood now, trying to go further up the field from P8. Peterson to his outside. The Logitech G Altus Esports number 14. Or number on the car, 14 in the sim, trying to work his way past him. 3 wide for a moment, a little bit further back as Conrath goes to the inside.
Garrett Conrath trying to take advantage of that good track position, and he does. To the inside he goes of Connor Horn, of Max Brady. Going to look to try and get underneath Brian LaPrade next as they have strung out. They are single file up to about Parker Retzlaff-ish in the 9th position, who's alongside Brian LaPrade for spots on the racetrack.
It is everybody for themselves right now. Diallo is battling with Cody Bias. This could be important for Omar Diallo's chances at the cut line. Every position means points. So if Diallo can get past Bias, that is going to be one more point that he can add towards trying to get above the cut line. He falls back a little bit. Here comes Manchester, Tennessee's Brian LaPrade trying to work his way through the field. Diallo is loose on the front straightaway. He's starting to fall positions on the inside line.
Not what he needed. I was just looking at the math to see where Diallo stacked up to Daniel Eberhardt, who was there. And as it sits on the racetrack, Eberhardt, oh, whoa, big hit there for Garrett Conrath over in the dog leg. Yellow flag out again, and that truck looks completely toast, hung up against the fence.
Unfortunate for Garrett Conrath, one of those drivers also who was unofficially ruled out, but also having a really good night when it comes to this race from Phoenix. And it looks like he hit the wall and the truck just kind of went right immediately, and a hard hit to the outside wall. That spells the end of the night for Garrett Conrath, and very weird as well. Went down into the dog leg and it just turned straight right.
Yeah, I think he tried to overcorrect and it put him in the fence, but more importantly here for the point situation, that will almost certainly spell the end of Garrett Conrad's chances. It's also somebody that Daniel Eberhardt knows he's going to finish ahead of, as how about this? Here comes Derek Bordeaux and Cody Bias. Oh, they tried to fake them, Justin Prince.
They tried, but a few drivers now coming down the pit lane either way. Brian Lockwood will them down to the lane this time. Parker Retzlaff and his camp also bring their truck on down, as well as Daniel Eberhardt, Max Brady, Brian Blackford, Tucker Minter and company. Majority of these trucks dealing with significant damage. There were some frustrations building up over the radio, in particular for the last of those trucks in line, Patrick Moose, who ended up getting hit out of the way and ended up losing 3 to 2 seconds on the racetrack. The discussion went simply with Ryan Hill. How many times you're going to hit me? From Moose, I don't know. How many times you're going to cut me off? It's called a braking zone. From Moore, and in response, it's called get out of my way. In our words, tempers were flaring right before that caution flag either way.
That was a very kind rendition of how it was said. I think there was a little more emotion when they were yelling that over the radio, but a good level-headed summation of it there, Justin.
I was also playing the points game again. Weird how I've taken up the role of mathematician here in this race as opposed to Jeff McConey. But
I'm eating ice cream.
You already eat ice cream, but as it sits, Liam Brotherton, I believe, currently scored 22nd in the other race, which means he would come home with, call it, 15 points? He came into tonight 19 to the good of Omar Diallo. So 15, do the math, you had 19. Diallo would need 36. The only way he gets 36 is if he's winning. And that means that it is Daniel Eberhardt that he is racing for maybe the last spot head-to-head amongst drivers who have struggled. And of course, there's also the drops to factor in as well. So a lot of variables here. But just going head-to-head, it is either Eberhardt that Diallo tries to beat or Casey Tucker who he tries to beat. And it's either race Tucker heads up or hope that Eberhardt drops back enough with the damage that it could play into Diallo's hands. Lights are off on the pace truck. Donovan Strauss back from the gas pedal. We are back underway at Phoenix Raceway. Josh Lee.
Here's the restart. Strauss on the inside. Honeycutt outside as Bias battles with Bordeaux out of that second row. 3 wide, squeezed up the middle is the number 23 of Christian Peterson. Inside is Colin Bowden. Outside, Briar LaPrade. They get it figured out coming through the dog leg. They might go 3 wide again as Omar Diallo continues to fall just a little bit on that outside line, trying to hold on to P6. Here comes Peterson looking for that spot. Lopez Jr. is going to make an inside move on Colin Bowden. Door almost shutting contact, and Diallo is spinning, saves it off the nose of LaPrade.
Oh, he just about went around, but that's a nightmare for Omar Diallo, who needed the track position more than anybody else. And all of a sudden, he is buried back in 16th, and he's going to go around over in 3 and 4 and smack the fence. Is he going to come down the racetrack and lock it down? He's just going to clip Tucker Minter, who just about made it, but Minter sideways. No yellow flag yet, but those drivers are around in the corner. Now the yellow flag flies, and if anything, that might have been a blessing for Diallo, but the damage, the track position, that's all gone. That may well have realistically ended Omar Diallo's hopes of making it into the Contender Series.
And that is just so upsetting that is how this race ended for Omar Diallo. Trying to get into the Contender Series, trying to get into the Coca-Cola iRacing Series. One contact led to another, and when you have that contact, James, Diallo was falling back through the field. Instant panic button being hit inside that race truck and trying to hold on to any possible positions he could. Led to more contact when he spun down, tagged Tucker Minter in the 10. That sent Minter spinning in turn 4 and up into the wall, leading to the yellow flag. But so unfortunate for Omar Diallo. That is a gift for Dylan Alt, Justin Bolton, and definitely also a gift for Colin Bowden, who's currently running in P8, and Blake McCandless, depending on where he's running in Split 2.
I was about to say that McCandless, maybe more than anybody else, is going to benefit from that because we know Ethan Lane's had his troubles tonight. Austin Yarborough's had his troubles tonight. Now Diallo's in that bunch. So Bowden's the other one that's in that ballpark that might be able to do something. But even then, Colin's still a few spots behind Casey Tucker. Bowden's currently scored in the 8th position and Tucker in 5th. And it's the same gap from Bowden to Tucker as it was from Diallo to Tucker entering the night. So Bowden's got to be ahead of Tucker to begin with in order to even open up that possibility. I would say, if anything, outright, that probably benefited Blake McCandless more than anyone else. Let's see if we can get an update on where he is in the other race.
This is really the point now, James, where it is all anxiety for anybody close to the cut line. Talking about the drivers that are in split 2 that you can see the last 12 laps for as well over on podium 2. Open them both up, watch them both, see how everybody finishes in both splits. But the drivers in that split, I think of Blake McCandless, if he's live streaming right now, he might know just based on his chat of what's happening in this split. But think about other drivers, if it is just them alone in that virtual race truck, no crew chief, no spotter, nobody feeding them information, they have no idea what's happening. They're just trying to race their own race, so they're waiting with anxiety as much as we are to see how the unofficial points at the end of this night is going to work out.
We can tell you McCandless is running in 5th in the other race as the lights go off the pace car, and he was 5 points behind the cutoff coming into tonight. So you look at somebody maybe like a Daniel Eberhardt at the 17 and the 5, it's a 22-point difference that he would need. If he's running 5th, that's 32. Eberhardt in 18th, to be 19, it wouldn't be enough. So there may still need to be work from McCandless yet to finish this off, especially because Justin Bolton's having a good run, and Dylan All, so far as we know, is up there. As also note Logan Helton up to P12 as we go back to green flag racing here with 10 laps to go at Phoenix.
Great jump for Donovan Strauss again. Caden Honeycutt back to P2, still side by side. Been the same story, couple of restarts over with Bias and Bordeaux being side by side. Tucker and Lopez Jr. now side by side as well, as Jordy Lopez Jr. trying to get around Casey Tucker, but you can see has a wall in front of him that is all the 04 of Derek Bordeaux. Everybody further back trying to gain as many positions as they possibly can. 9 to go at the line. 9 laps left in the qualifying series. All points will be solidified at the end of this race.
Big run here for Bias and Bordeaux, who have pretty much thrown a blockade on the rest of the field. But how about Casey Tucker, who could use a few points just to be sure that he's safe, but also not get caught up in anything. But this is about as high as we've seen Tucker all night, riding at 6. You go on board with the number 28 truck riding behind Bordeaux, and Jordy Lopez Jr. to his inside.
Almost entire field still side by side right now as they race through 1 and 2. Back to the double side by side battle. That is now Jordy Lopez Jr. and Derek Bordeaux, Will Norton and Casey Tucker. Parker Retzlaff back up into P8. What a recovery drive for the number 42 machine tonight. Side by side, Lockwood and Peterson for P9 as well. Where are those drivers on the cut line? Colin Bowden, not with the best luck off the restart. He's in P11, needs to gain more spots because Justin Bolton and Dylan Alter are racing in split 2. Casey Tucker, who is also in front of him. Tucker's 5 points good to the cut line. If he can get past Tucker, that is going to be huge for him as Bias gets to the outside of Honeycutt, side by side for P2.
Tucker is the thorn in Bowden's side at this point. No question about it. Tucker's the one that Bowden really needs to have something happen to in these final few laps. Coming to 5 to go at the line. Strauss has opened up his lead to almost a second. Bias and Honeycutt are happy to go 2nd and 3rd. Lopez is 4th. Bordeaux is 5th. And how about Will Norton trying to make a charge? He'll slide up ahead of Casey Tucker, and that might open the door for Parker Retzlaff to come underneath both of them.
Ooh, Honeycutt gets a shot from, I believe, Jordy Lopez Jr. Either that or he got very loose coming off of turn number 4 to the front straightaway. You're on board with Bordeaux, now trying to hold on from 5th. Will Norton, Parker Retzlaff battle from back. 3 drivers all within just about a couple of tenths of each other right now, and Lopez Jr. and Honeycutt and Bordeaux add to that list as well. Strauss running away at the front of this field with 4 to go, James. Great to see Strauss at the front of this field, ending the qualifying iRacing series exactly on what he has been doing this entire season. Came alive in round number 2. If he gets the win here at Phoenix, it'll be 4 total wins in this round.
4 in round 2, 2 in round 1, 6 on the season. No one else comes even close. If he's trying to go out and win the series championship, he's doing it with authority. 3 laps to go. The last twist in this tale I think we need to watch out for is whether or not anything happens to Casey Tucker, who has slid back to 9th all of a sudden, so slipping just a little bit further back than he'd like. But Tucker absolutely is the one with the pressure on more than maybe anybody else in this field right now.
2 to go at the line. Final opportunity for anybody to get spots and get points in this eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series for 2021. Still side by side as Bordeaux's gonna power around Retzlaff. Not for long as Retzlaff gets a great run. Up in a P5 goes Parker Retzlaff. Strauss is gonna work into turn number 3 and 4. The final lap of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series, James, as Jordi Lopez Jr. pushes Bias up the track.
They move Bias. White flag out for Donovan Strauss, who is rebounding after a poor run in the Contender Series last year. He won 2 races at Darlington and at Dover in the first round. He backs that up in round 2 with wins at Knoxville and Homestead, Miami, and Rockingham. And as he comes off of turn 4, he can add Phoenix Raceway to the list as Donovan Strauss will come across the line to win his 4th race in round number 2 and unofficially win the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series Championship. That is some momentum heading into the Contender Series for Donovan Strauss and all the folks backing the Marietta, Georgia driver.
An absolutely amazing second round for Donovan Strauss as well. 4 total wins. His drop, James, was 31 points, and absolutely insane that he's dropping a top 10 out of his points.
Nuts, to say the least. Yeah, when you think 6 is the worst he's done out of all of these races in round number 2, impressive, I think, is an understatement, and this is a driver who very clearly has something to prove as we get a good look at his burnouts and reminds you that this winning moment is brought to you by Martin Sports, brought to you by Scott Martin, who nearly 10 years ago in the frozen region of Michigan's Upper Peninsula founded Martin Sports, who shines for the best custom apparel for your needs. Whether you need shirts for your office, jerseys for a local sports team, or specially designed apparel for your sim racing group, Martin Sports has you covered. With shirts and other team wear, they also offer gloves specifically crafted for sim racing that are lightweight, breathable, and complete with padded leather palms. Use the code PODIUM to receive 40% off of any in-stock racing glove at martinsports906.com. And also, don't forget to visit their Facebook page at facebook.com/martinsports. We will take a quick commercial break, and then it's time to speak to the podium and, more importantly, try and unofficially figure out who has made the top 20 in the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series for 2021. We'll be back from iRacing's virtual Phoenix Raceway on Podium Esports in just a few. Well, you want to be the best. You can't settle for the rest. There's a reason that Makoni Setup Shop is trusted by more virtual and real-world tracks and companies than any other setup shop in iRacing. With partners such as Stafford Motor Speedway, the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway, Five Flags Speedway, Speed 51, and more. When you want something done right, you go to the experts at Makoni Setup Shop.
With setups available for most series on both asphalt and dirt, built by a team of professional builders consisting of some of the top talents on the service, Makoni Setup Shop LLC has what you need to hit the track with confidence. Head over to MakoniSetupShop.com and learn why Makoni Setup Shop is the official setup shop of Richmond Raceway Esports and is partnered with some of the largest names in virtual and real racing.
And remember, at Makoni Setup Shop, there are setups, but your victories.
Waltrip, Marlin, Petty, Earnhardt. These are just a few of the greats to add their names into the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway record books. who adds their name this time around? The All-American Esports 400 returns to iRacing's virtual Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway October 23rd through 24th. Register now at podiumesports.com/AA400. Sign up before October 17th to receive discounted registration for the weekend. Write your name in history at the All-American Esports 400. Welcome back to Podium Esports coverage of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series from Phoenix Raceway. Here's a look at your final rundown for this final race of the season. Remember, one of two that took place this evening as part of round number 2. Donovan Strauss wins his 4th race in round number 2 across both races. Unofficially, he is the champion of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series for 2021. Tony Lopez Jr. comes home 2nd, Cody Bias 3rd, Caden Honeycutt 4th. We believe they are all set to go to the Contender Series, as should be Parker Retzlaff, who finished 5th. Brian Lockwood was 6th. We knew Derek Bordeaux was going to be there. He's 7th. We think Casey Tucker's done enough. He's 8th. Will Norton comes home 9th, and Christian Peterson completes the top 10, Josh.
P11 goes to Colin Bowden. Just not enough tonight to get himself above that cut line. Unofficially, very close to it as well. Santiago Tires, P12. Max Brady, 13th. Connor Horn, 14th after a bad night. Brendan Kohler comes home P15. Daniel Eberhardt, it looks like unofficially, successfully stayed above the cut line with that 16th place tonight. Logan Heltson, a good finish to a rough season in Road to Pro for him. He ends up 17th. Patrick Moose, 18th. Ryan Hill, 19th. And Brian Blackford rounds out that top 20, Jeff.
In 21st is Austin Yarborough. Ethan Lane comes home 22nd. Tucker Minter 23rd. Omar Diallo in 24th, needing a good run tonight. Briar LaPrade, the first car and only car, 1 lap, 25th. And Garrett Conrath, 20 laps down, rounds out the 26th truck field in 26th.
So much to talk about here on the post-race show, but first and foremost, let's talk to your race winner, Donovan Strauss, who you find speed on these flat tracks, on these tricky race tracks. You had to work for it tonight. You started 11th, didn't necessarily have the best qualifying run, so poking your way through the field. How tricky was that, especially in the first half of this race?
Yeah, it was incredibly hard to pass, and when we were on like lap 30 and I'm up to 5th, I'm like, we got to rock it. We have something to contend with here. And I just kept clawing at it. And we were really good, especially on the short run. And we kept getting these restarts. And I knew those were my chances to get to the lead. So I was just pushing as hard as I could on the short run. And I was working hard on the restarts. And eventually got by. Derek made contact with him into 1. And I wasn't trying to do that at all, but I felt like I was there. And we made a little contact, but that got me the lead, and I knew once I got that, if I just played it right, I would have set sail, and that would have been mine.
You did set sail at the back end of this. 4 wins in this round, 2 in the first. Unofficially, the series championship goes to you. That's our math, of course, to be confirmed by Tyler Hudson later on, but still, should it pan out that way, to be the champion of the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series, what's that mean to you?
Real quick, this is going to be a long interview because I got to thank a lot of people, and it's my chance before the Pro Series. But it means the world to me to be champion of the series and to have 6 wins throughout this year. I worked so hard last year, made it in, and had stuff in pro happened, and I came back this year and worked hard on myself and my abilities, and thankfully I had really good people around me, and we put 6 wins together and a championship campaign in this round. It's unbelievable, and there's so many people I want to thank.
Plenty of people that will give you the chance to thank for sure, but you now come in as, I guess, the number 1 seed of this group per se into the Contender Series now, not the Pro Series. Might take a little bit to get used to, but we'll give you time. But even still, to come in with this kind of momentum into the Contender Series, especially after the way it went for you last year, I think from our perspective, this entire qualifying series campaign has been about redemption. How excited are you now that you've proven yourself here again to go after a spot in the Coke Series with authority and try and right the wrongs that hit you when you were in this spot a year ago?
Yeah, to be in this exact spot I was a year ago is just mind-blowing to me, because it's like in my head it's like really hard to put it all together again, and I didn't know if I could do it. But like I said, I just worked on myself, and to be back in the Contender Series is something I worked hard for all year, obviously, and it's definitely redemption to what I went through last year, and we're gonna work really hard, and we're gonna do the best we can, and we're gonna try and get into the Coke Series.
There is work to be done, we know, but for now, celebrate a championship. Donovan Strauss, go ahead and read off your laundry list. Send the people all the love and all the shout-outs that you need to that have helped make this so successful campaign possible.
First off, I gotta thank my mom for watching and sticking with me all year. She knows how much this means to me, and she's watched literally every single race the past 2 years, so I can't thank her enough for watching and supporting me and helping me out with everything I do possibly. And I can't thank everyone at ESC from round 1 to when I left 2 races ago for supporting me and being so kind to me and welcoming on board and working with me really well. I can't thank all of them enough. I can't thank Vicente and JD enough for spotting and sticking with me throughout this whole year as we went through some crazy stuff. And I can't thank my new team, Legacy, for welcoming me in and helping me so much. Boyd, everybody for just letting me in and letting me get to work, and I can't wait to work with all of them in the Pro Series. I can't thank my friends enough for supporting me. Nutrient Solutions for sponsoring me this round. It's unbelievable the support they've given me this round. Unfortunately, that was my last race with them, but still have some exciting stuff to announce for the Pro Series, but that's about it.
A driver to watch, no question, in the eNASCAR Road to Pro Contender Series that will start up in November. Donovan Strauss, congratulations on your victory tonight, and congratulations on unofficially claiming the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro Qualifying iRacing Series Championship.
Thank you.
Donovan Strauss, P1. We'll have a few more folks that we'll talk to in just a few moments, but for now, let's turn our attention, Josh Lee, to that list, shall we? Because there are a lot of people, I think, that are anticipating the read-off of who we think by our math has made it. So, Josh, Jeff, Justin, we ready?
I think we're ready. It's
Ready.
an official list. Remember, everything is awaiting the great Tyler Hudson to take a look at everything. But unofficially, we do have 20 names that we can read out. Who's taking it first?
I am going to take care of business and let everybody know who we believe has made it. And yes, I should reiterate what Josh just said, that this is entirely unofficial, and the official calculations are both dependent upon iRacing finalizing these results and then Tyler Hudson manually approving all of them after the final results from these 2 races have been confirmed. So the official list is subject to change. based upon what happens in those two parts of the process. But for now, with the numbers we have, these are the 20 drivers that are advancing into the eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing series, which you will be able to see on Podium Esports starting November 2nd, 2021. We know about Donovan Strauss as the series champion. He was good before we came into tonight, so he is there. We believe Donovan Strauss is good enough to make it into the Contender Series. Jordy Lopez Jr. is in that boat. He's there in the Contender Series. Colin Keister is there. Parker Retzlaff is there. Brian LaPrade is there. Seth DeMerchant is there. Cody Bias is there. Derek Bordeaux is there. That group represents the drivers who had already either locked themselves in or locked themselves in tonight by starting the race. We knew that group was going to make it. First up on the list, who locked themselves in tonight, he had a really strong drop, so no shock here, but Brian Mercurio is going racing in the Contender Series. How about Wind Valley 8820, Michael Cozy Jr. got the victory tonight at Phoenix in the other race. He too is going to be racing in the Contender Series. Caden Honeycutt, what a strong run for him tonight, fourth in this race. Put together one of his best runs of round number 2, equaled his round best finish at Homestead to lock himself into the Contender Series by our math. Santiago Tires is back Contender Series racing, trying to regain a place in the Coke Series. We believe he is in there. Christian Peterson has been around the sim for a while and has worked hard to try and earn a spot into the Contender Series for a few years now. This year, he does make it. Unofficially, we have him 13th on the list. Daniel Eberhardt had a really rough go of it this evening, but Eberhardt, the former Podium 500 champion, we believe is in unofficially based off of our math into the Contender Series. Kyle Peddle, consistent, strong, solid, pretty much every weekend, week out. Saw him a little bit more on Podium 2 than we did on the main, but he too also going Contender Series racing. Really strong runner-up finish in the other race for Dylan Altz this evening. You saw him on Podium 2. He makes it into the Contender Series. Casey Tucker realistically just needed a top 10. Casey Tucker got that top 10, finishes 8th. Casey Tucker, we believe, is into the Contender Series. Liam Brotherton was on pins and needles, and he just about was going to fall out for a split second, and there were a few moments tonight where he was on the outside looking in, but ultimately he ends up on the right side of the cutoff, 6 points to the good, and he is racing in the Contender Series. Nicholas Shelton is the 19th driver that we believe is Contender Series racing in 2021, and the very last driver to make it, and how nuts it was on Podium 2. Hopefully we can get a shot of this from Zach Johnson in some way, shape, or form in the not too distant future. But Blake McCandless, unofficially, we believe, has the 20th and final position by 2 points. And if you want to know how nuts this was, McCandless on the last lap of the other race on Podium 2 by our math was on the outside looking in, and there was contact between Jeremy Davis and Justin Bolton entering turn 1. Bolton lost about 5 or 6 spots, and it was the spots he lost on that last lap that made the difference between Bolton being the last man in and McCandless being the last man in. So it came down to the very last lap, but Blake McCandless, who struggled in the first 2 races, only picked up 16 points at Knoxville on Homestead. It was looking very grim for him. Completes an unbelievable comeback in the second round to claim the final spot in the Contender Series, and Mr. F4 Speed has a shot at going Coke Series racing after all. He will be one of 40 drivers competing for a place in the Coke Series come November. Those are the drivers who made it in, which also means, Josh Lee, we need to talk about the drivers who we have unofficially making it out, who ended up just on the wrong side of the cutoff line.
Yeah, and those drivers begin with Colin Bowden, who we saw tonight. Just an unfortunate night for him. Justin Bolton, like we mentioned, he unofficially ends 2 points below that cut line. Brandon McKissick, Brandon Cattell, Drew Farinarge add to that list. Omar Diallo, we saw his incidents that happened in the latter portions of that race. He comes home 26-15 below the cut line. Will Norton, Agno Phillip, Austin Yarbrough, Ethan Lane, Connor Horn, Michael Finlayson, Jeremy Davis, Dylan Jones, Brendan Kohler. Lists can go on and on with all the drivers that have not made it in, but that list of 20 is a lot shorter than that list of 50 that will be going home. And so that top 20, James, is exclusive territory, and they're going to be joining the bottom 20 who face relegation from the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, which is an important and exciting race over there too that we'll see in a couple of weeks' time when we go finale racing from Texas.
Yeah, we've got a little bit of this field still to fill out. We'll find out the other 20 based upon the final point standings after the Coke Series once their championship race is done at Texas Motor Speedway. Those finishing 21st or lower in the Coke Series at the end of their season will drop into the Contender Series and race against the 20 names we just read off. And that will complete your 40-car field for the Contender Series, which you will see in its entirety on Podium Esports this November. Now, this being the end of the season, we have a bit of a special way to wrap things up. Normally we wouldn't do this, but we've got our team over from twitch.tv/Podium2 now joining us in the Podium 1 booth and producer as well. So Zach Johnson, Jacob Hitz, Kevin McAdams, and Justin Melillo now join us. And Jacob, I'll come to you first. Just thoughts on your race this evening, how tight it was, especially with Justin Bolton and Blake McCandless, and what you saw throughout this Road to Pro Qualifying Series campaign in 2021.
The first 100 laps of tonight, I wish never happened. There was a little bit of drama in there where we had McCandless trying to pull a one-stop strategy. But man, it was so dry in that first half of the race. There wasn't a lot of passing. We didn't see a wreck. We didn't see a caution until past the halfway point. After that is when the dominoes started to fall. The caution came out, which ruined Blake's initial strategy. We had people taking 2 tires, some people staying out, and that's when we started to see more and more cautions fall throughout the night, which really kind of put everything together. We had people on the cut line making mistakes. Blake was always in the picture. After he made that pit strategy to go with 2 tires when that caution came out, when the first caution came out, him and Cozy went with 2 tires. They wound up out front. They stayed up front the rest of the night. It was that call really that put Blake in an opportunity to hang up there and barely make it. Justin Bolton, I wouldn't say he wasn't a factor tonight. He wasn't as big of a priority of a factor to us until that last lap when I saw him get booted in the background. When we knew that it was going to come down between him and McCandless. Blake played his cards perfectly tonight. Things didn't exactly fall his way, but in the end, he's the one that's moving on. There are a lot of people that are unhappy that they're on the outside looking in. But that's why we show up here. That's why we race. If we just go off of, oh, they're not going to make it, we would never have this situation. But because we showed up, because we ran this race, that's what we got.
We got a nail biter is what we got. Kevin McAdams, you were there throughout the whole of round number 2. Just your observations on this. We know you've got an astute eye for some of the best racing in iRacing and what constitutes good racing. And I think we saw a good chunk of that throughout this Road to Pro Qualifying Series campaign.
It was really a pleasant surprise, talking to the drivers throughout. They were worried about things that they really couldn't control, obviously competing against other teams, competing with having to do with track position, competing with things like dirty air. The physics in this simulator is getting so realistic that you got to worry about things you can't even see anymore. And tonight was no different. Seeing these drivers go to the second lane, go to the third lane, and seeing that almost at every track we saw this season, you really had to be on your A game the entire year. And if you had one slip up, and we saw in Podium 2, Justin Bolton was in until the last lap in turn 1, and that's all it takes. It's so close, and it's so cool to see a regular season style format, no gimmicks, just good old-fashioned heads-up racing come down to the wire like this. I think as a viewer, as a driver in this game, and now as a commentator, that's exactly what you want to see. Just good old-fashioned fun, and these guys are going for it every step of the way, and we'll see that again going into the Contender Series here in a month.
it should be tight, it should be testy. And I think there is something to be said about the points format, like Kevin just pointed out, that the only, if you could even call it a gimmick maybe, is that these drivers have a drop to work with. Other than that, you just have to try and go out and get as many points as possible, and no race is more or less valuable than any of the others, which made for a very intriguing end to things, especially for the Bob-pocrates of the eNASCAR world. Justin Malillo, who's also with us in the booth. And Justin, you made the joke to us earlier that you were busy trying to put together all the point scenarios, like the guy who's working at the crazy crime scene board. And I have a feeling your brain's still probably fried after all of the calculations you've had to do tonight.
I actually broke my calculator at one point tonight, James, and that was pretty scary. But we ended up trying to figure it out, and I know that there was one that was doing the calculations out there with just inputting some data, but I was doing it all by hand and trying to figure out where everybody was at exact moments, and it was really fun to do that. And just when like Kevin and Jacob said before, when Bolton got moved out of the way, that changed everything for Blake McCandless. If this ends up being the official way that it ends up, Blake just put himself in the right spot at the right time tonight. Very unfortunate end for Bolton. And overall, this entire season, like I said at the end of the other broadcast, it's been incredible to watch these guys master their craft, and it's going to be really fun to watch and see what they can do in the next round when they're going up against the 20 relegated drivers from the Coke Series.
There's a lot of talent in this bunch, and I feel like we say that just about every year, Jeff McConey, but it just seems like, as is the case with the growth of the service, with the way it's been, especially after the way it blew up last year, you knew that everything was going to be more competitive because we had an influx of so many more new members than we had ever had, and greater year-on-year growth than we'd ever have. As you get a look at the unofficial final standings based upon our math, screenshot that if you want, but there's the 20 that we had advancing into the Contender Series in November. But could you make an argument, Jeff McConey, that this might be the most talented crop of drivers coming from this series in its history?
I would say every year it gets a little bit more difficult because you have more people getting on the service, more people taking it seriously, and especially in this past year where a lot of people were at home and sort of realized, like myself, oh, we can take iRacing full time. We can make this a job. We can do this as our source of income. Now, granted, when you're driving, it's a little bit more difficult because you're relying on winning and going out and being in the Coke Series and being a champion there in some cases. So, yeah, I would say this definitely was the most difficult year thus far, but I think next year is going to be even more difficult, and the year after that is going to be a little bit more difficult than that. So every year it gets harder, and that's not to take away from years past, because at that point it was the hardest it had ever been, but this is definitely a very stacked field. It was a very unprecedented year, I think, to say the least, and I think these drivers that pulled through and were top 20 are some of the top drivers on the service, without a doubt.
How entertaining it should be then to see them go after the Coke Series drivers, and how impressive it should be, I think, Josh Lee, when we get a crack at the Contender Series next month.
That is really where everything's going to change. Obviously, points completely reset. It's completely independent series, but we're moving from the trucks to the Xfinity cars, and everybody knows those Xfinity cars are so much different than the NASCAR Cup Series cars or the NASCAR Truck Series trucks. So it's going to be a completely different game, and these 20 are going to join the bottom 20 from the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, and we know that anybody who is relegated from the Coke Series comes back with a certain fire. So they're going to have an entirely different set of drivers they'll be fighting against, and an entirely different format when going into the Contender Series. They're going to have to beat 20 of the world's best drivers who just finished a little bit far too down in the points. It is going to be exciting throughout the month of November.
So much racing that we're going to talk about in November, and a slightly more condensed schedule as well. We're going to wrap everything up on the 30th, so you're going to have 5 races to work with in this Contender Series, and not as much time as we've had in other years. In past years, it's been a 6-race calendar that we've worked with, so that could increase the pressure even more. You're going to have to deliver. It's not a great amount of opportunities that you have to prove that you are part of the 20 best out of that 40. We will see some names drop off. We will see some names return from the Coke Series. We will see new blood come in. I think it says so much that we had one of the largest rookie classes in the history of the Coke Series come from the Contender Series last year. Wouldn't be necessarily surprised if we see a lot of turnover this year as well. But I also think, as we've said here, that also speaks to the strength of this series, the strength and the level of competition, and ultimately the growth of iRacing, which ultimately, not a bad problem for anybody to have here. So many people that we need to thank for everything during this season. But before we do, let's talk about some of the upcoming events that are coming in the world of Podium Esports and iRacing over the course of the next few weeks. We've got PCA Sim Racing kicking off Series 7 from the old version of Silverstone, coming your way tomorrow night at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Then the MSRA Premier Series is heading your way October 2nd. And then the EPI Super Nationals from the Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway on October 3rd, alongside the SimMax Cup Series powered by MPI from Atlanta. And then 2 official World Championship races to tell you about. You got the Force Dynamics Delara iRacing Grand Prix. Had a great race at Interlagos earlier this afternoon for those of us in the Eastern Time Zone. They head to Monza next Thursday afternoon, 3 p.m. Eastern on the iRacing Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube channels. And then you can head to the same places for the big one, the season finale to the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series 2021 comes to a close at the virtual Texas Motor Speedway. Special hour-long pre-race that'll kick off at 8 p.m. Eastern on iRacing's Twitch. And then head to Facebook, YouTube, wherever you might want to go to watch the championship race unfold and find out who is going to walk away with the title in season 2021. A litany of folks to say thank you to for making all of this possible. First and foremost, let's hit on the Podium 2 team that's had such a good run over on that channel all year long and all round number 2 long. To Zach Johnson, to Jacob Hicks, to Kevin McAdams, to Justin Malillo, to Sean Butler as well for providing their analysis and expertise throughout this eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series campaign. For the folks who made it happen on our side, starting with the folks behind the scenes at Podium who make it all possible: Gary Sexton, Cisco Scaramuccia, John Theodore. Our camera builder for all of our races, Dougie Beard, Eric Messer, coming through in Victor Valley, even tonight, coming through on socials to make sure that you see all your updates on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, wherever you may be paying attention. And for everyone who stepped into the booth over the course of this season, Evan Pashoko, who's been a part of the team for so many of these broadcasts throughout this year. And then our team on the broadcast tonight, Josh Lee, Jeff McCody, Justin Prince down on pit road, and our producer for the evening, Ryan Bauer. I'm James Pike, the voice of Podium Esports, saying thank you all so much for tuning in throughout this 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series season. And thank all of you who have been watching all season long from March to September, wherever you may have been. We appreciate your support so very much. Congratulations to the 2021 Series champion, Donovan Strauss, and congratulations to the 2021 eNASCAR Road to Pro qualifying iRacing Series class that advances the top 20 drivers that will be in the eNASCAR Road to Pro Contender Series, which you will see starting in November here on Podium Esports. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you in November when we find out which 20 advance into the 2022 eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series.